Warning, the following program was produced for traditional broadcast television. Over 12 minutes of commercials have been removed, but interruptions are still included. Thank you for watching.
What's the biggest thing that Bitcoin has changed in your life right now?
It changed everything. It's changed the way I look at the future. It made me more determined in Austrian economics that I started reading, having a low time preference, which typically means is, can you pass the marshmallow test? Can you defer gratification way out into the future? I ran a company, government consulting company. I started putting a little bit of the extra cash flow into Bitcoin 8 years ago, which it allowed me to retire earlier than I had anticipated.
Government officials insist we will continue to keep you informed as this story unfolds.
Welcome to the Money Block with Matthew J. Moore, the Bitcoin-focused program that's waking the masses to the fiat money Ponzi scheme. Money is changing, and your freedom is at stake. So stick around and learn how to empower yourself for this new digital age. Now, here's your host, Matthew J. Moore.
And so, welcome America, welcome world. Man, you are here at the right time, right place. This is America's Bitcoin-focused TV and radio show. And if you were curious, yeah, we are syndicated coast to coast on BizTV. So we want to welcome all of you guys. And all of you who are listening online, well, welcome too, because we're online as well. But man, do we have a show today? If you are new to Bitcoin, maybe you recently went down the rabbit hole, you may have heard of the term orange-pilled. Or, you know, the Matrix, reference to the Matrix, the blue pill, the red pill. Well, we're talking about the orange pill today. And today we have a story, a guest who is going to give us his insight on his journey. His name is Gus Calderon, which I believe I said that right. But Gus, welcome to the show. I know we only have a couple of minutes in this first segment, but I want to kick things off here. I want to bring up the topic here. You have this banner on your LinkedIn account that says Bitcoin is the answer. But what is the question? And I think that's important because we have to understand the question to the answer. Explain that to me.
So, Matt, good to see you again. You know, what's interesting is you grow up your entire life working with money, working for money, spending money. And once you realize that there is a completely different type of money, then you start questioning everything. Because in the simplest form, there are two social constructs that got started like 10,000 years ago. It's the construct of time and the construct of money. Well, that was started, people say, in the Paleolithic era, maybe 10,000 to 30,000 years ago. And the concept of time hasn't really changed. But now with Bitcoin, if we change fundamentally what money is, all social constructs start changing, and you start questioning, what is it that I know, and how is it what I know changes with that new construct, which is Bitcoin. So it fundamentally changes everything that you think you know about social constructs. What are they? Very quickly, like law, economics. Any social interaction is based on social constructs. So that's where I put that banner on LinkedIn, because you start thinking, what do I need to relearn?
Yeah, that's a great point, because there's a phrase in the Bitcoin space called known as fix the money, fix the world. And right. Bitcoin is definitely going to be changing a lot of things. And one thing I want to dive into once we get into the meat of this conversation is you are a baby boomer, and I'm not using that as a derogatory term at all. I'm actually excited because I think more people in your generation need to be aware of stories like yours and what this asset can do for them moving forward. So I look forward to diving into your story and unpacking that a little bit, because I think there's some elements to it that people are going to go, wait a minute. I've either experienced that, or I hope I'll never experience that. And so we're going to give some tips, some tricks, and some just overall enlightenment. So Gus, I'm excited for you to join us today, but we're going to run to break here in a minute. If you guys are watching this show, stay tuned, stay put. I've got a lot of questions to run by Gus. He's an educator, he's an advisor, and he's got a lot to say when it comes to Bitcoin, how Bitcoin has changed his life. He's ultimately taken that orange pill a long time ago, and it has literally changed everything. saying. All right, guys, we'll be right back after this break. What does it mean to be physically, spiritually, and financially free? The right to life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness, these were the ideas that made America. But what happens to these ideas when America's money becomes compromised? What do you do when the very thing that you're working for day after day is fundamentally designed to enslave you? Whether it was a conspiracy or not, you won't believe what is about to happen in this country. Arm yourself today with the truth and build your life on the foundations for liberty. Rediscover freedom in the 21st century and grab a copy of my Amazon best-selling book, Foundations for Liberty. For just $11.99, you can support this radio show by finding a copy on Amazon or by going to mattjmoore.com. Again, that's mattjmoore.com. Don't wait, because freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is round two, segment 2 of the Money Block. Yeah, that's right. We are America's Bitcoin-focused TV radio show, syndicated on BizTV. And if you haven't figured it out already, we talk about technology, we talk about money, we talk about the things Bitcoin is doing to the world. And so you've tuned into the right place if you're new to this space. In fact, if you want to go deeper, we talked on the first segment a little bit about, figuring out what this question is that Bitcoin is ultimately answering. Because I find that in order for people to understand Bitcoin, they need to understand the problem first. And so if you want to figure out what that problem is, you can download my book. There's a QR code that pops up right over there. A free gift. My way of saying, hey, thanks for tuning in. It's going to teach you a lot about what is money, where it gets its value from, and why Bitcoin is ultimately money. But I'm excited about today's conversation because we've got a guest on the line, and this guest has taken, like I said in the first segment, the orange pill. We talked about the Matrix, the red and the blue pill. Well, he's taken the orange pill, known as Bitcoin, changing his perspective on the world, changing the way that maybe he even operates in his own life financially. But I think he's got a story that that's going to change the way you see the world as well. So on the line is my guest, Gus, and he's a Bitcoin advisor, educator. Gus, I want to dive into our conversation here. I want to get things started with this. Take us back. Like, how did you ultimately get into Bitcoin? What was it that caused you to go down the rabbit hole?
The first time I heard about Bitcoin was probably late 2014, early 2015. I don't know exactly what the time frame was, but I do know the price. The price was $200 the first time I heard about it, and I very quickly dismissed it. I thought it was a joke. I thought, well, I don't do online gaming. I'm certainly not buying drugs online. And I thought, this is definitely a Ponzi. And a lot of people, when they first hear about Bitcoin, they think is this gut feeling, this reaction that it has to be a Ponzi. If it's not government issued, it's not going to work. So that was 2014. And I kept hearing about Bitcoin from several friends saying, hey, Gus, you are a technologist. Read this white paper, look at the code. It's available on GitHub. You can start looking at what this is. This might be humanity's best money. And I even laughed harder. But fast forward 18 months later, and I was training for a big bicycle event, a race. And I was listening to the Tim Ferriss podcast, specifically episode 244. And I live here in DC. It was a very hot August 1st. And I remember the day. And there was a specific segment, 57 minutes into the podcast. And he was interviewing Nick Szabo. And then suddenly the light bulb went on, which is very interesting because I had heard prior to that August 1st, 2017, I had heard here and there Bitcoin. And in fact, I believe it was in 2014, the first time CNBC aired Bitcoin, and it was $100. And so they replayed that clip. So I didn't hear about it when it was $100 because again, I told you it was $200 first time I heard about it. But CNBC replayed it, and that didn't mean anything to me until I listened to this podcast episode. And the interview was with Nick Szabo, which is a very well-known individual. So anyway, Matt, we can take it from there. But I'm lucky in that I know exactly the day that I got orange pill, and Bitcoin was not $200, $2,800, 18 months later.
So you were listening to this podcast. It prompted you to do some heavier looking into it and realize I got to get some of this because if this is actually working and the way it's supposed to and it's everything people say it is, then I got to have some exposure to it. Was that kind of your reaction overall?
Well, yes. The reaction was this. I had been in technology my entire career, and different people come into Bitcoin from either an economics perspective, a philosophical perspective. But what resonated with me was when Nick Szabo said, and I've made several posts about the exact 7 minutes that Orange Pill made. When Nick Szabo said, this is the first technology that its success is that is highly inefficient. And if you're going to have a decentralized system, you have to have a very broad base. And the only way to do that is with something, and he called it when the machine is highly inefficient, because efficiency drives centralization. So for something to be fully decentralized, it has to be, he used the term inefficient. And I said, that's very interesting, because as technologists, we always drive towards efficiency. And the more efficient, the more centralized you have to get into. So that particular soundbite resonated with me, and from there, you're right. I started learning about what is this inefficiency that he's talking about, and that did it for me.
Yeah, I think for myself, it was this concept of realizing if these components come together and work the way that they're supposed to, and this really is true digital scarcity blew my mind, because we were so used to copying and pasting everything. But now here's a network, a ledger, an asset that can truly be scarce. Like that changes everything for the digital economy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
So was that any part? Did that play any part in it for you when going down the Bitcoin rabbit hole?
Well, what's interesting is I immediately got home from that training ride, and I bought my first full Bitcoin. I thought you had to buy a full unit, so I went and bought a full unit, which I still have on a special hardware wallet. It's just one Bitcoin, and I'm going to keep that one pristine Bitcoin because it was the first one. But what was interesting is I immediately started reading more of the technology aspects, how the blockchain works, and it was a lot of digging for, not only podcasts were very few and far between, but I started reading the underpinnings of the technology. So I hadn't even gotten to the scarcity part yet. I was fascinated that the only way to truly deploy a worldwide decentralized system was with something that was so inefficient that nobody would dare, and here comes the economic part, nobody would have enough money to replicate a highly inefficient system because there's no profitability incentive.
Right.
So once Bitcoin was completely spread throughout the world, and in fact, it spread throughout the world when Bitcoin, the asset, was worthless, meaning it had not even it wasn't even worth a penny. And that took about 15 months to spread with no value. And that's what a lot of people call the immaculate conception, that once you know that something could derive value, you will never have the conditions that allowed Bitcoin to spread when it had no value. And so all the nodes that got propagated throughout the world, they did so for the cyberpunk type of novelty, because again, there was no economic value to download a full node and start running it. So I would say for the first year, I was really focused on the technology aspects. And then shortly I ran into this digital scarcity, which is fascinating. I can say more about that, but
Yeah. Well, I think, with the limited amount of time we have, I do eventually want to go down your story. There was a moment where you ran into some banking problems. You have a certain background that surprised me that when you dealt with these financial institutions, that your personal background didn't play any positive part in resolving some of the conflicts that you were having. But we won't go into the nuts and bolts of that just yet, because I would like to get more time on that. So we'll do that in the next segment. But ultimately, with a minute left, what's the biggest thing that Bitcoin has changed in your life right now?
It changed everything. It's changed the way I look at the future. It made me more determined in Austrian economics that I started reading, which, by the way, I studied a lot of economics in college. Never came around the term Austrian economics, let alone what I'm about to say, which is having a low time preference, which what typically means is, can you pass the marshmallow test? Can you defer gratification way out into the future? So once I started learning about Bitcoin, it changed everything. My sense of consumerism went out the window. I started valuing that Bitcoin was really encapsulating time earned, and I could push it into the future as opposed to earning a good salary and thinking, well, now I can spend it.
Yeah.
The single most important thing was how life changes once you truly defer gratification.
All right, well, we got to run to break, but when we come back, we got more of Gus's story. Don't go anywhere. I promise you're going to love it. We got more to cover with Gus. We'll be right back after this break. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is round 3, segment 3 of the Money Block. And this is Bitcoin's, a TV show, radio show. We're all over the place that's focused on Bitcoin. And so I welcome all you Bitcoin newbies, lovers, and experts. Hopefully you're new to the space, because today's episode may just open your eyes to just what is possible. So today we've been talking about this Bitcoin journey of our guest today. But before I bring them back on to go even deeper, I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. And by saying thank you, I'm saying, hey, here's a free gift. Download my free book. It's an Amazon bestseller, Foundations for Liberty. It'll give you the primer, the info that you need to understand the core principles of monetary sovereignty, what's good money, where does money come from, how our current system works. So go ahead, download that. That'll help you in your Bitcoin journey along the way. All right, well, I'm going to pick up our conversation here. On the line, we've got our wonderful guest, and like I said, we've been talking about his story. His name is Gus Calderon, and he is a Bitcoin advisor and educator. And so, Gus, I want to pick up our conversation here where we were talking a little bit about the moment that you realized Bitcoin was not only an asset you needed to own, but was going to change the world and change a whole lot of different things. And so you also ran into some, hurdles, is one way to put it, some problems when it came to friction with the banking system. Talk to us about this story, about where you were trying to, I can't remember if you were trying to buy a certain amount of Bitcoin, but you ran into some headache. Can you share with us about that?
Yes. So this is now 3 years into my Bitcoin journey, because again, not 3 years, 6 years, because I was orange-pilled in 2017, but sometime in November of 2023, I wanted to transfer, let's just call it a large amount from my bank that I opened up. You mentioned I was a boomer. Well, I went to University of Maryland and graduated in 1985. But in my freshman year, I opened up a bank account. Now, I had that bank account for 43 years, and I went into the branch because I wanted to transfer a large sum from my bank of 43 years to a Texas bank. I wasn't transferring money outside the country. It was a wire transfer. So I go to the bank, and it's a good thing to have personal relationships, especially with the bank. I go in, the manager said, "Oh, Mr. Calderon, how can I help you?" I said, "I want to do a wire." I said, "Well, you can do that from home." I said, "Well, it's a large amount. I know that wires are not reversible. So I want to do it right. Can you help me?" So I went to the side office. We filled out the paperwork. And then he said, "Well, Mr. Calderon, tomorrow before noon, you're going to get a call to just verify that you do want this wire to go through." So I get a call. Next day, I was working out in the gym. "Mr. Calderon, do you know that you're sending this money to a crypto company?" "Well, this what?" And I said, "Yes, I know." He said, "Well, do you know that this is very, very risky? We really suggest that you do not do it, but we're going to read you, if you bear with us, it's a 4-minute long disclosure." And it was 4 minutes. And it was about the fact that I was going to lose all my money. Not because I was wiring the money to a bank.
Oh, boy.
Is what I would do with it once it was at this other bank.
Oh, boy.
Now, this bank, it was the bank of a Bitcoin-only company that they do multi-institutional type custody and multi-sig, which we can get into those technologies later in the segment. So I said, "Sure, go ahead. Are you sure, Mr. Calderon?" "Yes." I had to say yes like 5 times. Well, 2 hours later, my wife calls from Whole Foods. "What happened? All of our accounts are showing 0. I'm here with a basket full of food. I can't pay. The kids called. I have at the time 2 boys in college. Their debit cards were zeroed out. I look at the phone where I see all the family's bank accounts. They're all 0. I'm in a state of panic. As I'm rushing to the bank, I'm with the phone, and they said, "Well, Mr. Calderon, we warned you that we didn't want you to work with any crypto-based activities." I said, "Yes, but it's my money." "Well, we want to let you know that we've terminated your banking relationship with us forever."
Wow.
I said, "What?" I said, "What about my money?" "Well, upon further investigation, we'll send it to you." What investigation? So I was sweating bullets. And again, Matt, you cannot overestimate the importance of having good personal relationships in any facet of life.
Well, not only that, but you had a special clearance, a security clearance.
Yes. On the phone, before I got to the branch, which I could have been arrested for how fast I was going, I told them, "Listen, I have a top secret SCI clearance, which I still do to this day. Do you think I'm going to jeopardize my family's well-being and my clearance for doing something nefarious, illegal? We don't care about your clearance." Well, I had heard, Matt, that there was something called Operation Choke Point 2.0, specifically led by a senator from Massachusetts, female senator from Massachusetts. We don't need to name names. And so I get to the bank, and again, thank God, the manager that helped me with the wire, I told them the story, and she said, "Mr. Calderon, let me log in, come to my office." He says, "I don't see anything here that prevents me from issuing you a cashier's check. Do you mind if I lump all the monies from all the accounts into one check? That way I can do it very quickly." Boom. 10 minutes later, I had one check with a large sum. And so across the street, there was another branch. I went and opened the account. 2 days later, the funds clear. And that was one of my happiest moments of my life, because on the line was my marriage.
Yeah.
Who knows what else? So, Matt, all I did was take that without any profanity, without any insults. I noted that on X, and it went viral. Viral to the point that at the time, my 16-year-old daughter said, "Dad, you finally have gone viral." and there were 10,000 retweets of this story. And obviously some of the retweets had profanity.
Yeah.
You could imagine what they were saying about the banks. And this is why we need Bitcoin, permissionless, get away from banks, etc. Well, that viral retweeting lasted maybe 14 hours, 16 hours, and I got suspended for life from X.
Wow.
I tried to this day, and this was Elon's X. He had already bought Twitter. To this day, I've been trying and begging to get my content. And I even told X, hey, I'm in the middle of writing this book. I need my content. I don't mind if I never get back on the platform. Please give me my content. And I would always get like an auto reply. I don't think a human ever saw it.
Well,
so that's the story.
That's an incredible story, and so much hassle there. But just reinforces why Bitcoin is important, why it's needed. Stay put. We got more with Gus. We'll be right back. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are back in action with the Money Block. I want to welcome you guys. If you're new to Bitcoin, welcome to the show. This is syndicated coast to coast on BizTV, the Money Block, and we're here to have a conversation about Bitcoin. In fact, that's why I do this show, and I bring on guests who've got interesting stories. And before we had to jump to break, we were listening to our guest today, his story about some of the hurdles and challenges that he had when he was dealing with the traditional financial system and getting into Bitcoin. And now we're going to kind of turn the page here and talk about the advantages of Bitcoin. But before I bring him on, I just want to let you guys know that I'm so thankful that you're tuning in, whether it's TV or whether you're watching online. You're going to see a QR code that pops up right over there. Be sure to get out your phone, scan that. It's a free digital download of my Amazon best-selling book, Foundations for Liberty. My way of saying thank you, and it's going to help give you the ideas and just to kind of prime your thinking when it comes to money and how Bitcoin fits into the picture ultimately. It's not necessarily a book about Bitcoin, but it's going to give you those foundations to, it makes total sense. Now I know why Bitcoin fits into the picture. All right, well, let's continue our conversation here. On the line, I've got our guest, Gus. He is a Bitcoin advisor and educator. Gus, I want to bring attention to one of your posts that you made on LinkedIn recently, which is you said Bitcoin breaks centralized and permissioned systems. It stands alone as the only truly borderless and permissionless asset. Can you explain to the audience what all of that means and what it's about?
That's a deep topic because a lot of people have said, people that are into everything cryptocurrencies and blockchain, that decentralization is on a scale. I actually think decentralization is binary. It's either decentralized or there are aspects where humans are playing some role as an intermediary. So part of the aha moment that I had with that podcast episode with Nick Szabo was that Bitcoin is not the first cryptocurrency. It's the first cryptocurrency that was able to be completely intermediary free. And every single cryptocurrency after Bitcoin has some degree of intermediaries. So the fascinating thing is something that has all of its code in the public domain on GitHub. You can download the latest version of the code for the nodes, for mining, for the consensus. All of it is available, but yet no cryptocurrency post-Bitcoin is free from 100% from intermediaries. So that's what I mean. So it also means not only in the crypto world, there's not a single institution in the world that if it lives long enough, it will die from what? From corruption.
Yep.
Every institution that lives long enough, some of them, let's say a company that doesn't live long enough because they didn't have product market fit or they get acquired. So assuming that a company lives long enough, has to grow and get more and more centralized. And with centralization, that means there are fewer and fewer decision makers. And at some point, those decision makers corrupt themselves. So it's interesting to read in the history of organizations why they fail. And Bitcoin is a network that has no intermediaries. So that's where that post came from, which is fascinating because people say, wait a minute, something that is digital certainly can be improved upon, but it's interesting that no one's been able to make a better Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Now we can get into what layers 2 and layer 3s can do, but that's where it comes from, is actually living in awe, thinking, is this the first technology that is impossible to replicate? Because every technology prior to Bitcoin, you could make a clone of it, whether it was radios or TVs. Imagine if Sony, that came up with the first color TV, if they had some type of technology that nobody else could make a color TV, well, that would have been extremely valuable. But Bitcoin is the first technology up to now that no one can replicate.
So, since, Bitcoin is a tool that has been needed because, as we were talking about your experience with the financial system, the traditional financial system, and the problems and the hurdles that you ran into, if you're listening to this and you didn't get to hear his whole story, go back, go on my website or go on our YouTube and check it out, because he's got a great story about, some of the headache that he had. But Bitcoin solves a lot of these problems with the people who are in the middleman. It gets rid of the middleman as we're talking about decentralization and what Bitcoin is solving. But do you think Bitcoin is the only real shot that we have in this narrow window of history to fix the problems of the past and maybe restore this level of personal monetary sovereignty in this digital age?
I do. And in some respects, that's kind of, it makes you feel like, come on, open up your creativity, open up your options. How could Bitcoin be the only cryptocurrency that will be truly decentralized? But the more I study it, the more convinced I am, to the point that I wanted to really, I'm old enough, you mentioned I'm a boomer, born in 1962, one of the youngest boomers. I really started studying what is it about Bitcoin that cannot be replicated. And it's fascinating. I give credit to a book called the Genesis book that goes through all of the components that had to exist prior to Bitcoin. And it's fascinating because a lot of people think, well, Bitcoin is just Satoshi's invention out of the blue. Well, no, it's the internet had to be there, cryptography had to be there, public key cryptography had to be there. All these components had to be there. And yet Satoshi was able to come up with the missing link. And the missing link was really based on two things. What is there on Earth that is incorruptible? Because everything on Earth can be copied, can be co-opted. And the one thing that Satoshi realized, it wasn't his original thought, but he realized energy, watts, not joules, but the actual harnessing of energy. That's not corruptible. Nobody can fake having energy. And the other thing that was the final missing link was this difficulty adjustment. So that's why I'm lucky that I came in it from a computer amazement angle, because it makes me realize that every single cryptocurrency post-Bitcoin wanted to be more efficient. And I'm thinking, you're missing the point.
Yeah.
The low-hanging fruit is not to make Bitcoin more efficient. The secret sauce of Bitcoin is that it's highly inefficient. And if somebody would have enough dollars, right now it would be $1.6 trillion in today's market cap, they would have to invest a tremendous amount of money with no return to make something more costly than the energy expenditure. So that alone makes me realize this is it. The base layer of money is set. And luckily, we have thousands of companies now building on top of Bitcoin as layer 2s, whether it's the Lightning Network and all those other applications on top. But having no intermediaries is fascinating. I mean, Matt, you can send me a few Satoshis this afternoon, and I know it's coming from you directly to me. And 50 sats is good enough, so go ahead.
There we go. I love your thinking. Well, okay, so you like you mentioned, you're a baby boomer. We've got 1 minute before we got to go to break. I do want to hit on this topic. I mean, how has it been explaining Bitcoin to your generation? Have you had any success?
Very little. I like this saying that, well, it's not a saying, it's a truth. If you don't know what the problem Bitcoin is solving for you personally, because there are as many Bitcoiners as there are problems. If you don't know what problems it solves for you, you're not gonna understand Bitcoin. So for me, it was knowing that keeping one step ahead of money debasement, which I like that term better than inflation.
Sure.
Because money debasement is how many more units of dollars are out there. Yep. So for me, trying to have wise investments, whether it was real estate, because I dabbled in real estate, all kinds of stocks and this being glued to CNBC, trying to stay ahead of just the S&P 500, which is really the rate of money debasement.
Sure.
It was very difficult. So for me, Bitcoin solved that problem, that no longer do I have to work like crazy to just try to stay ahead of inflation. So that's a problem to solve for me, but we can get into other problems that spun from there.
You bring up a good point. People have to know their pain points and figure out, oh, wait, Bitcoin's answering that problem for me. So when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Gus. Stay put. We got some more great content coming your way. We'll be right back. AI is here, money is changing, but freedom has never been more important. I'm Matthew J. Moore, the Money Block host on BizTV, Amazon bestseller, and Bitcoin policy advisor. Book my up to 60-minute talk, Redefining Wealth and Freedom God's Way. I'll teach your church, business, or civic group how to secure money, freedom, and faith in the digital age. This is urgent, so I'm slashing my fee from $1,000 to $500. Cover my travel, and I'm there. Scan the QR code now. Spots are filling fast. What does it mean to be physically, spiritually, and financially free? The right to life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness, these were the ideas that made America. But what happens to these ideas when America's money becomes compromised? What do you do when the very thing that you're working for day after day is fundamentally designed to enslave you? Whether it was a conspiracy or not, you won't believe what is about to happen in this country. Arm yourself today with the truth and build your life on the foundations for liberty. Rediscover freedom in the 21st century and grab a copy of my Amazon best-selling book, Foundations for Liberty. For just $11.99, you can support this radio show by finding a copy on Amazon or by going to mattjmoore.com. Again, that's mattjmoore.com. Don't wait, because freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the final segment of the Money Block. And man, I hope you have been enjoying this show. We are America's Bitcoin-focused TV radio show, syndicated on BizTV. And today, we've been having a great conversation with our guest, Gus. He's been sharing his Bitcoin journey, his orange-pilled story. It's a term we like to use in the Bitcoin space, being orange-pilled. But Gus, I know we've got a limited amount of time in this last segment, so I want to kick things off here. We were in this episode, we've been talking not only about your journey, but I guess this is a two-part question. First, I had asked you about how successful you'd been at converting people in your generation, the baby boomer generation, into Bitcoin. But also, Bitcoin has transformed your financial outlook and the way that you invest. So how can you answer that, in a two-part question here? Like, how has Bitcoin changed the way you invest? And then why is it that maybe baby boomers who are pretty wealthy now, and at the age of retirement are like, hey, you know what? I don't want any of that Bitcoin.
Yeah, the first part is pretty easy. I think if you're successful as a baby boomer, somehow you knew how to play the game. Whether it was in medicine, engineering, law, somehow you were successful enough to and by the way, this cohort, my cohort, we were never taught what money is. Money is just something you work for, but Austrian economic type thinking, that's not taught in schools. Maybe out of 10,000 universities, there's one near my home that does teach Austrian economics, which is George Mason University. So not only did the baby boomers not have an understanding of what money is, but if you're successful, what is it going to do to me? And then maybe the third part of the baby boomers is money is just something the government authorizes. So right away, what do you mean? It has no one behind it, not the government. So I've had dismal orange pilling capabilities with baby boomers. So I feel fortunate that I wasn't one of them.
You were one of the bright ones.
Well, so again, I mentioned briefly that one of the problems it solved is that I knew enough about money debasement that, hey, I'm pretty healthy, and if I'm going to live to be 90, like my father or more, he's actually 92, how am I going to save for that future using the current system? Because that really requires that you have no off years, that you really can compound your investments at a minimum 7 to 8% a year indefinitely. And that's a tall order. And that's why many surveys, they ask people, what do you fear most? Dying of some dreaded disease or running out of money in your golden years? And it's running out of money. So from that perspective, once I started understanding that Bitcoin is a fixed supply, I'll give you a simple, example. Let's say my neighbor comes up with a great idea for some widget, and he becomes phenomenally wealthy in fiat terms. His success doesn't help me. Maybe he'll invite me to some nice barbecue, but his success in fiat terms, now he's, let's say, worth $100 million. It didn't help me. However, if my neighbor with the same idea puts all his company's energy and his attention into Bitcoin, what he will do to the entire Bitcoin holders, given that it's a fixed supply, when his boat rises, it brings mine up as well.
Right.
So that is a key change, that his success, whether he likes it or not, is going to bring my success up as well. And that just changes everything. That is no longer a dog-eat-dog world. It's his success is my success, and my success is, and that's what will never exist in the fiat system.
And what's crazy is we're still early on the adoption curve of Bitcoin, so we still have a long ways to rise here. So collectively, how has this changed your outlook on how you invest, I guess?
I started going back to that term, low time preference. So I make a lot of posts, and in fact, I'm a stickler that no one should buy Bitcoin. I'm almost emphatic, unless you have at least a 200-week time horizon. What's 200 weeks? 200 weeks is 3.8 years. Why 200 weeks? The first time I saw that the 200-week moving average of Bitcoin had never dipped, that's an aha moment. So the discipline, I would say, and I've made many posts. In fact, you could do a search on my bitcoin.gus website for just the number 200. But my suggestion for my family, for me, is, sure, we're going to invest in Bitcoin, but it's really not an investment. So the change was, we're going to, for the first time in our lives, save. So my savings over a long enough time period, minimum of 4 years, preferably 8, will outpace any investment that I had done prior. So that's the way I now look at it. I don't invest, I save. With that big caveat, it's got to be at least 200 weeks. Now, Matt, I'm sure you know about bond ladders. So the way I look at Bitcoin is almost like a bond ladder. Spend any Bitcoin and enjoy your Bitcoin. Don't die with your Bitcoin in you. As long as it has a gestation period of 200 weeks. So think of buy Bitcoin continuously and only enjoy that Bitcoin that has been in cold storage at a minimum of 200 weeks. That way you will know that, of course, you got to pay your taxes and whatnot, but at least you know that you're always spending Bitcoin that has at a minimum 2x, sometimes in 4 years, 10x. So I have different, and I keep it very, very clear. If I do spend some Bitcoin, when did I acquire it? And has it gone through that 200-week gestation period? Last month, I was in Canada heli skiing, and I enjoyed immensely heli skiing, and I did it with Bitcoin that was 7 years old.
Well,
and so that gives you a perspective that that I think very long term, and I really don't do technical analysis.
Well, we're running out of time, but you got a lot to say. Website one more time.
BitcoinGus.com.
All right, guys, that's all the time we got for today, but we'll see you same time, same place. Adios.
The opinions and suggestions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants and are not necessarily endorsed by program sponsors or any station, media company, or platform broadcasting this program. This program is a product of More Media, LLC. The information in this broadcast is not intended as investment, tax, or financial advice. Matthew Moore is not a licensed investment advisor and speaks solely from his experience and opinions. All information in this broadcast is for entertainment or educational purposes only. Matthew Moore, More Media, LLC, and the company or platform broadcasting this program is not responsible for the success or failure of any person's investment decisions or purchases. Matthew Moore, More Media, LLC, and the company or platform broadcasting this program makes no and expressly disclaims all representations, warranties, and guarantees with respect to this broadcast and its sponsors. Investing in any market is inherently risky and can be financially dangerous. Invest at your own risk.